Newsfirst, Newsline with Faraz Shauqatali.
Top of the morning to you. This is Newsline, live but not quite live. It's a recording from the Newsfirst studios in Dawson Street in Clambo. And our guest this morning is a cyber security executive, Gabe Goldhirsch, the Executive Vice President Global Services for ZeroFox. And very good morning to you.
Thank you for having me. How are you?
Good, thank you. Now then, tell me, Gabe, what's going on in this world of social media? There's people taking over accounts and lots of consternation.
Certainly. So we see a range of issues, whether you're an individual or you're a company or you're an executive, a high net worth individual, or even a government entity, of having your credentials compromised across social media, people impersonating who you are or compromising your brands or reputation, and then generally employees and customers being phished for whether that's malware interjection or to get personal identifiable information. So there's a huge risk out there that's affecting people on social media, which more people communicate on today than traditional email.
I see. So obviously these threats on social media can be pretty challenging. How can you help?
Certainly.
Is that what you all do?
That is what we do. We actually help in two ways. One is we deliver awareness, and then we also deliver the ability to actually remediate when we identify nefarious activities across social media. And so we have a complex software system that leverages artificial intelligence and machine learning to essentially take in all social media threads and then present that information to the user. And in some case, we can actually automatically remove that off of social media.
Right. How is social media being sort of misused then?
Sure. The number one entry point that we see is a lot of times that executives or their company's brand are being impersonated. So somebody comes in, and it's a very low bar to entry. They'll come in and they will actually stand up a representation and claim to be, for example, you, right, across social media. And the people that want to interact with you, maybe they want to comment on your news show, they may be commenting on a separate Twitter feed that someone's pretending to be you, but it's not.
Right.
And so what happens is they're essentially hijacking your voice.
Right.
And so what we do is we're able to identify that and then remove it off social media so that we can protect your credibility.
Right. And so does that also mean that apart from individuals, you can do the same for corporates?
Absolutely, right. So we do that for large governmental organizations, large enterprises, as well as small businesses.
Right.
Everybody that uses social media is affected by this.
How, before that, I need to ask you, how long, is this your first visit to Sri Lanka?
It is.
Okay. How have you found the awareness of this issue amongst in Sri Lanka?
So it's interesting. So we have a country manager that introduced us to the Sri Lankan market, and part of the reason why we're here first in our effort to expand into Asia is because we were told that Sri Lankans in general are very innovative and very willing to try out new technologies. Mm-hmm. And plus they're large users of social media, and reputation management is something that they're very interested in. And so we were invited to speak at the Cybersecurity Summit. I believe it was the 5th annual one, and it was a great honor. And much to my surprise, it was much larger and a much greater experience than we had actually anticipated. There was hundreds of folks there, and the quality of the actual production was world class.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So, what about you talked about reputation management? That sort of people are quite aware.
Sure.
But do you do the same for governments?
Yeah, so one of the things that from a government perspective, first it should be established that our terms of service as a company is we comply with UN's charter on freedom of speech, right, as well as U.S. First Amendment. Right. And so that's something sacrosanct that we never compromise. But we can deliver companies awareness, right, and governments awareness about what's being said about them so that they have an opportunity to engage with their citizens and have a dialogue.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So you're not the service to go in there and through whatever means go and remove something,
Right.
however offending or not it may be.
That's correct. So we don't censor people's voices, but what we
Right.
do remove off social media is if you have a product, and
Right.
let's say you produce Wi-Fi routers, and
Right.
somebody's counterfeiting those and selling them,
Right.
we'll remove their actual social media sites so that they can't actually undercut your sales and your revenue stream.
Right, okay. How's your response been in Sri Lanka?
Well, this is, I think I'm entering my 36th hour.
Okay.
So far, I've had very positive conversations with some of your industry leaders, whether it's mobile network operators or some of the larger retailers.
Right.
So very, very positive.
Have you managed to fit in anything touristly or anything remotely touristic?
Well, it's been extraordinarily difficult, but this morning I made it a point to wake up at 5:30, and I actually walked over to Gangaramba.
Oh,
And
the
I got to
Gangaramba
see-
temple.
Yeah, and I got to see a Buddhist ceremony, and it was just extraordinary, an absolute delight.
Did you see the elephant? Was he there, the elephant?
No, I saw an elephant head
Okay.
on one of the auxiliary buildings, but
Right.
no, not a live elephant.
No,
Unfortunately.
sometimes there is, and
Okay.
it's quite a hit. Right, well, you've done the sort of Gangarama round. It's very good. It's convenient to where you're staying as well. But now tell us, what do you, is the level of understanding amongst corporate Sri Lanka, within corporate Sri Lanka, of the potential dangers and so on? Is this understanding high enough, or is there sort of a...
Yeah, you know, it's interesting. Our company historically has made a play in the B2B space, and so the part of our strategic objective going into this next fiscal year is to focus more on the business to consumer space. And interestingly enough, I think the most tractions we're getting in Sri Lanka to date is in that B2C space, where we can provide protection through mobile phone and mobile network operators to expand out to their customer base.
I see. Obviously your company being here, your local representatives have alerted you to opportunities here and so on. Mm-hmm. What do you think is or what do you expect the greatest challenge to be here in our market?
I think the greatest challenge will be to make sure that we fit in culturally into the way the Sri Lankans want to leverage our system and the way that enterprises have risks.
Newsfirst, Newsline with Faraz Shaukatali.
Gabe, can I ask you, what risk would we have when our personal data is misused on social media?
Certainly. So, as a company, if somebody actually is impersonating who you are, they can actually change your entire messaging.
Right.
They can change what your people are supposed to believe about what your product's capable of doing, as well as change what the nature of the way your company's perceived across social media.
Right. So they may actually put some negatives in rather than the other way around.
Yeah, negatives or means to actually knock you out of being competitive
Right.
to other companies.
Okay. So it's like it's hacking then, is it?
It is. It absolutely is a form of hacking. There's probably about 12 different ways that they go about that on social media.
Right.
And
And so then what is this account impersonation then?
Sure. So account impersonation is when you have an adversary will create a fake representation of either your company, one of your products, one of your employees or executives, and pretend to be them in order to steer an audience away from the authentic social media site into their own, so that they can control the flow of information.
Mm-hmm. Are there laws in the US to help with that kind of thing?
Yeah, there are laws, but it doesn't even get to the actual legal level. It really is the social media networks are very responsible and have this in their terms of service with misuse of social media network. And so that's actually where we're empowered to take down these impersonating social media accounts or social media posts through the terms of service of the social media networks.
So that's interesting. It doesn't ever come to, even though in the US it's rather a litigious society.
I wouldn't say it doesn't ever.
No.
It does, but probably about, I would say, 2 to 4% of the time, we actually do have to engage with legal. And so we see that less on the social media side and more actually on the web domain side, where, say, a well-known bank may have somebody that's actually hijacked and maybe say free checking at firstbank.com as opposed to firstbank.com.
Right, I see. So that would have you noticed? So obviously your country manages reporting back of this of Opportunity Sri Lanka and you're here and so on. Especially for Sri Lanka, now that we have a war behind us, and virtually the whole country is focused on moving ahead in terms of the economy and so on. Is there a place where it all gets mixed? How can impersonation on social media affect us? Then there is fake news and so on.
Certainly.
And we notice a greater reliance on social media, even in Sri Lanka.
Right. And so I think most Americans, as they're using, or most people around the globe, as they're using social media to communicate, where it's replacing email, they're also using it as a vector to get a majority of their news. And one of the things that we can help do to solve the problem of fake news is we can actually trace whatever link there is for the news and attribute it back to either an authentic news source or a false news source or a fake news source. In addition to that, where we can actually take it to the next level, and one of the challenges we've seen with some of our news customers in the United States is every once in a while their social media accounts are actually hacked, and someone will go in and put whatever fake news headlines they want in a real news site. And so I think AP Press had something a few years ago where they reported a bomb at the White House and President Obama injured. And you could trace within minutes a dramatic drop in the Dow Jones stock market. And so being able to have that attribution to see that when something is suspect, if it does come from a credible source, can you see if there's been an apparel to their credentials?
Right.
And so we provide that level of insight and auditing to security professionals.
And obviously this would affect brands as well.
For sure. So from a brand perspective, one of the common things we see is counterfeiting. And so we see companies propping up legitimate looking stores, right? It might be cheapnikeshoes.com, and they'll actually fulfill the orders. And they're stealing a large part of Nike's business. And so what we will do is
with fakes?
With fakes.
Okay.
And they want to be a legitimate business in the sense that they want customers and repeat customers, and so they'll do order fulfillment. And interestingly enough, but the company itself is illegal, and so we'll help our companies, our customers identify that and then take down their presence on social media. I
see. In terms of what about the corporate's one, but what about, do you have services to help the consumer, the retail side of things?
Yes, we do. In fact, we're about to release ZeroFox for everyone in the United States, and it's actually one of the things that we're working with the mobile network operators here. So ZeroFox for everyone will be an offering so that anybody can have their social media account protected at a very, very low cost. And the idea behind that is that from a consumer perspective, I think most of us are concerned within our own groups. I mean, one of the things I hear Sri Lankans talk about is that even though it's a country of 20 million, everyone knows everyone. And so you can imagine if somebody's saying something that's unsavory about you, you want to be aware of it and at least have an opportunity with that awareness to go and respond. And so we look forward to providing that level of protection to the average person. In addition, one of the challenges we're facing right now in America is within our school systems is a tremendous amount of bullying. And so I think that this will give parents a tool to be able to understand what social stresses their kids are seeing inside school and be able to work as a community to actually resolve it.
Right. So that's obviously, and this product that will help consumers, the retail product, you will be launching that in Sri Lanka too?
That is correct. That's correct. And this is one of those innovative reasons why we're here.
I see.
Because we believe that the Sri Lankan's appetite is strong for this. And so this will be actually our first push in all of Asia will be here in Sri Lanka.
I see. Is it too early to ask you what your experience as a corporate has been in setting up here in Sri Lanka?
Yeah, it's probably a little bit too early. I can tell you we've got a very good foothold in Europe and the Middle East. And so with that success, we figured just the next natural step would be to continue going further east, and Sri Lanka is the first stop.
When I think of American companies in Sri Lanka, and I'm thinking they're pretty long way from home.
Yes.
With obviously the American, your marketing team being very proactive.
Right.
And y'all are here.
Right.
Well, you're here. Does that indicate that you must have some confidence in this economy?
Sure. We not only do we have confidence in the economy, we have confidence in the mentality and the culture here to make sure that our products are successful. We have excellent support in this country from our country manager, and in addition, from a ZeroFox perspective, we're able to actually offer all of our customers 24/7 support. And so, likewise, that commitment on both ends, from a customer and also a service provider, I think is in very fertile ground.
I see. And how is Sri Lanka doing in terms of how should I put this? In terms of encouraging companies such as you to come here?
Sure.
Have you detected any proactivism on the part of officialdom here in this country, or is it the proactivism on the part of your managers?
Right. So I would say it's a combination. Yeah. And so there's one is that when we come to a country like this and they're holding their 5th annual cybersecurity summit, and it's a very successful event, and you can look at the pictures on their website last year, and they've probably 3 or 4 folded the number of attendees. That's good acceleration from our perspective. In addition, when multiple companies, whether they're mobile or finance or retail, want to have conversations with us about the type of products and services we're offering, that's also another good indicator. And so I would say Sri Lanka has been an excellent resource for us.
What about your company yourselves? With all this sort of fake or impersonation going on, as we discussed earlier, what about, do you guys get impersonated or copied?
Yeah, so we do, I actually keep a very small footprint on social media myself. Right. I come from a cybersecurity background, and so I'm a little bit paranoid. But I'll say that absolutely our executives get impersonated. Our employees get impersonated. Our employees get phished. And so the one thing we do at ZeroFox is we drink our own champagne. So every employee of ZeroFox is also a customer of ZeroFox, and is protected by ZeroFox.
I see. And what would you say to the big corporates here when you knock on their door?
Sure. I think the process happens in stages. So the very first thing that we would suggest companies do is start off with protecting your executives, and then expand to what your key brands are, and prove out that it makes sense for you. And then you expand into providing support and protection to your other key employees, and eventually working out to even the lowest level of employees. Because ultimately, if anyone in your organization gets phished, and there's a malware injection, or there's PII, or there's data leakage that goes out, your company's compromised. And we see that it happens at all levels, regardless of job.
Recently in Sri Lanka, we had a bank which found that some of its key client data was compromised. Somebody just sent it by mistake to someone else.
Right.
How does, I don't know if you're familiar with the case, but how does one deal with that?
Right. So one of the things we do, in addition to protecting off of social media, is we also look at what's transpiring on the deep and dark web, and where you see a lot of this information, credit cards, national IDs, passport numbers, being transacted and sold. And so we're able to have insight into that and then help take those actual sites down so that customers are being exposed. In addition, one of the things that we see from a financial vertical perspective is data leakage, where if a bank is involved in a merger and acquisition, we see employees sometimes talking about it. And so if you're part of that, obviously you know that can affect stock prices, that can affect sales costs, and so we're able to alert and remove that as well. And the other thing in financial is money flipping schemes. There's a tremendous amount of criminals out there on social media that are taking advantage of people to get access to their bank accounts.
And that's a dangerous trend, obviously.
Sure.
What about so identity theft and this impersonation? Then we have. It's not fair to say Nigerian or African, but I mean constantly on a weekly basis. At least I'm getting stuff saying that, you know, my great uncle's some dictator somewhere. There's millions of dollars here, blah blah blah. But I know, as a journalist here, I have met at least 3 people who've actually fallen victim to this.
Certainly. So so that's traditional phishing, and obviously it's happening a lot more on social media now than it is on email. And so we see actually phishing happening really in 2 vectors. One is through the actual just customers, where one of these phishing scams might put up a customer support site, and it may direct you to a phone number that has nothing to do with that company. And what you end up doing is giving over your bank account information, your PII, so that you can adjust a payment or what have you. And so what's interesting in that phenomenon is that the customers don't get upset necessarily with that criminal that have just tricked them into giving them their bank account. Who they get upset at is the actual company that was providing them the service, because they believe, the bank, they believe it's the bank's job to protect the integrity of all of their communications. And even though they got pulled off the bank platform to go speak to somebody else, that page they went to has the bank's logo. It has, 500,000 followers, and so they assume it's real, and the bank should be aware of that, and the bank is responsible for ensuring that those type of entities don't exist.
I think that's there's 2 sides to that, because I certainly expect my bank to safeguard my information. And I'd use the online payments things because of the confidence I have in the bank. And if they then came up to me and said, well, tough, then I won't be very happy.
If you can imagine, you went to a Deutsche Bank Sri Lanka Twitter page, and it wasn't the authentic one. But it had all the other forensics to make you think it was real. And then you ended up calling them to go fix a problem in your statement. And unbeknowingly, you've just now given them all your information.
As we come to the end of our time, what are you looking forward to when you're coming back? When do you think that you'll start? Have you already got clientele here?
No. So our push into Sri Lanka began probably about a month ago. And so I look forward to come back on a monthly basis to continue the conversations. And
there's enough of awareness to convert that into money.
Certainly, absolutely. In fact, this is another one of those days where we have about 5 to 7 meetings scheduled, and so as long as there's interest to have a conversation, ZeroFox will be here to have that conversation with Sri Lankans.
Wonderful. Gabe Goldhirsch, thank you very much for being on Newsline, and we look forward to seeing you more often in Sri Lanka.
I appreciate that. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. And that's it from Newsline this morning. We'll see you same time, same place on yet another weekday. Take care, and God bless.
Newsfirst, Newsline with Faraz Shaukat Ali.